The Ghost in the Shell introduced us to some of the coolest cyborg characters of all time, but one of my personal favorites has always been Batou, the most towering and intimidating member of Public Security Section 9 and the most loyal investigative partner to Major Motoko Kusanagi. Now, throughout the different continuities, Batou's personality has different interpretations, but one thing remains true. The man is a fully cyberized individual with only a few organic parts left in his body. In today's video, we're going to talk about the entire anatomy and his character and discuss two major iterations: Mamoru Oshii's Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence and the 2002 standalone complex series where Batou's character is explored in detail. It's going to be fascinating, so without further ado, let's get started. Is Batou a full-body cyborg? Alright, so the question of whether Batou is a full-body cyborg depends on which timeline of this universe we're talking about. In the original manga, Batou isn't exactly the existential, solitary, and tragic figure we see in Mamoru Oshii's anime franchise, especially in the Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence. Even in the manga, he's heavily but only partially cyberized, unlike Innocence, where he's a full-body cyborg except maybe his hair, and that's an interesting point. We've seen Batou's hairstyle changing. Originally, we saw him with a white or gray crew cut, but in other continuities, he keeps a low ponytail, as we saw in Oshii's adaptation, as well as in the standalone complex series. This isn't confirmed, but we think it's safe to say that the cyberization hasn't touched his hair yet. In Mamoru Oshii's depiction of the story, Batou's arms, legs, and torso are all man-made, cybernetically enhanced prosthetics that can be replaced if damaged. But yes, his brain, although heavily cyberized, still connects with his biological brain tissue. This helps him to retain his humanity and the memories of Major Motoko Kusanagi. However, in the manga and the standalone complex series, Batou proves that he's still partially human. We've seen him doing physical exercises like jogging, heavy lifting, and maintaining a lifestyle that helps a human body sustain itself. There's even a scene in the manga where he has an argument with the Major and she hits him with a coffee mug, which hurts his forehead. That physical pain got him thinking that maybe he should take a full-body cyberization so he would never experience pain again. Moreover, Batou's signature prosthetic eyes were with him since his military career in the Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force, and those prosthetic implants alone make him the most crucial part of Section 9. Why are Batou's eyes so important? Batou's goggle-like prosthetic eyes were meant to upgrade his vision, but they became much more than just that. These cybernetic eyes carry the history of Batou's military career and his humanity as well. No matter how much he swaps out his body parts, those eyes remain the most permanent thing in his cyberized body. The standalone complex series showed that Batou's eyes were cyberized when he was a military ranger in the Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force, and ever since, we've known them as the sleepless eyes because they don't blink or fall asleep. These eyes look more like lenses with a shutter mechanism, which he uses to analyze his targets and scan the objects and civilians around him. Once activated, his eyes provide him with important data about his targets. He can even track bullets coming in his direction with the help of these eyes, and most importantly, they can also track a person even if they use thermo-optic camouflage, although that part does have some limitations. Motoko Kusanagi is a high-performing cyborg and much superior to Batou, but her eyes are a modernized version of cyber enhancement, and that's why they still look completely human, whereas Batou's goggle eyes are old-fashioned, but he still uses them like a war veteran still uses his army jacket even after retirement. Moreover, these eyes also help him hide his emotional vulnerability because fans know that he's actually a very sentimental guy, so wearing these eyes, he can appear as a cold and strict man who takes no bullshit in the line of duty. While designing the character for the standalone complex series, animator and character designer Hajime Shimomura revealed that Batou's physique was heavily inspired by a Greek mythical creature known as the Minotaur, the bull-headed monster who guarded the labyrinth of Minos. But originally, when Masamune Shirao created this character, he said that he was more inspired by Eastern mythology than Western. In Japanese Buddhism, there's a deity called Batou Kannon. Also, the name kinda matches his personality. The long, masculine, and rugged face of Batou with those tiny prosthetic eyes indeed gives him the look of a horse head, or Batou in Japanese. Also, here's a fun little it's more like a comedic short or a gag attached to the standalone complex series called Tachikomatic Days, where Tachikomas find out that after returning home every night, Batou actually unscrews his eyes before going to bed, and that particular detail leaves everyone speechless. As I said, this isn't canon lore, but more like a meta-character joke that hits harder the more you think about it. What happened to Batou's right arm in Innocence? In Mamoru Oshii's The Ghost in the Shell 2, Innocence, Batou and Togusa were investigating a series of murders committed by these self-destructive rogue gynoids, which were nothing but a conspiracy set up by a corporate giant. While continuing the investigation, Batou and his partner went to visit a local Yakuza bar for some interrogation, but instead, Batou got in a massive shootout, killing half the men and sending the other half to the hospital. Now, this is the kind of time when even a cyborg like Batou can be a bit overwhelmed. After reporting to Aramaki's office, when he was heading back home, he entered a grocery store to pick up dog food, and at that moment, his cyber brain was breached by a devious hacker called Kim. Due to the breach, Batou initially thought he was surrounded by enemies, which triggered hallucinations and a phantom loop where he accidentally shot himself in his right arm. Before he could come for the store owner or maybe blow the entire store up, Ishikawa saved him by cyberlocking his brain. Next, when he woke up, his arm was replaced with a more upgraded version of a cyber arm with a hidden weapon inside. In the final climax of the movie, we saw his arms reveal the hidden gun inside to kill the horde of gynoids attacking him on the Locust Soulless ship. Now, all of this happened because Batou's cyberbrain was hacked, which further proves that even though he chose to stay away from his human body parts, he's still vulnerable to the hackers who can literally control his ghost, just like what Kim did to him. That said, in the second half, when Batou confronted Kim, he was already immune to the trickery, so instead of falling into the same trap, he saved Togusa from the surreal phantom loops created by this hacker. What human part still survives in Batou? So if we try to calculate what percentage of Batou's body is flesh and blood, and what percentage is titanium and carbon fiber, we'll probably never get a definite answer. Instead, we should ask how much of the ghost is still there in his body even after so much enhancement. Can Batou even call himself a human anymore? In my opinion, the answer is yes, and I have plenty of examples to support this. The 1995 Ghost in the Shell film and the sequel Innocence both depict his complex humanity even though he's a full-body cyborg there. In the original manga, as well as the standalone complex, Batou is a full-fledged human even though parts of his body are just metal and wires. In Innocence, his cyber brain still possesses the core memories of his senior commander, Major Motoko Kusanagi, whom he considers his guardian angel. Although we never really see him verbalizing his emotions for Kusanagi, we know that he was secretly in love with her, but both of them strictly maintained their professional boundaries. Even in the final fight in Innocence, where one of the gynoids with Kusanagi's ghost inside comes to help Batou, he paid her the appropriate respect by putting a jacket on her naked body, just like he had done before. However, aside from his feelings for Kusanagi, there are multiple emotional levels that we've seen in Batou. Remember when the entire corrupted corporate setup was exploiting young little girls, trying to turn them into sex dolls? Well, even a full-body cyborg like Batou retained more humanity than those exploiters. The very act of kidnapping a little girl and turning her into a gynoid unsettled Batou from the start. Another heartfelt example of his humanity can be found in his adorable relationship with his dog Gabriel, a genetically cloned version of a basset hound. We see him caring for his dog like a father would care for his child, and even though the dog is a clone, he returns that love and adoration to his master, which is maybe the most beautiful and warmest scene in the bleak world of Ghost in the Shell. However, Standalone Complex also made a vital nod to Batou's pet-loving quality, which is seen in his relationship with the Tachikoma tanks. Only it was Batou and Motoko who treated the Tachikoma tanks more like sentient living beings than a replaceable tool. Batou spoiling them with organic natural oil just feels like a very human thing for their favorite animals, like giving treats to your dogs or cats. And then, in the manga, we see a very different kind of Batou, the one who cracks jokes and becomes funny and goofy sometimes. If you're a die-hard fan of Mamoru Oshii's Ghost in the Shell series, then you probably wouldn't even associate with the Batou we see in the manga. So it seems as though the manga has already established Batou as a human, even though his synthetic physiology makes him a cyborg, so the true nature of his humanity is still up in the air. Why does Batou still work out? Batou appears to be the most powerful cyborg after Major Motoko Kusanagi in Section 9. We've seen him seamlessly combat his targets while being extremely conscious of his surroundings. Most of the muscles in his body are synthetic material which don't go through hypertrophy, nor do they accumulate fat deposits from being inactive, yet Batou works out like a human being. In the standalone complex, as well as in the manga, we've seen him rigorously practicing exercises, jogging, and lifting heavy weights even though it doesn't make any difference to his body. In my opinion, the exercises help him psychologically more than they help his physical health. Part of his motivation for doing workouts comes from his rigidity in rejecting the machinery. He can't really reject the truth of being a cyborg, but by choosing to work out like a human, he gets close to his humanity. Moreover, the heavy workout keeps him from the psychological burnout that comes as a consequence of his job. His full-fledged synthesis into a cyborg makes him dissociate from his core identity, and that creates a huge existential despair within him, just like what happened to Motoko in the 1995 film. We even saw Motoko taking deep dives into the ocean to get rid of her bleak identity crisis and embrace her human nature in the deepest darkness of the ocean. Also, for Batou, it's kind of a habit that he just couldn't really shake off. He was a military ranger who went through extremely strenuous physical activities, and maybe that's why it became a habit for him after years of living the life of a typical army man. Now, just like those old-fashioned prosthetic eyes, the habit of doing heavy exercises holds the same value to him, to remind himself of his past career in the military when he was still a half-human. Why is Batou still hackable? If it's possible to hack Batou's cyberbrain, then it's possible to hack his most powerful cyborg eyes too. One such incident occurred in Standalone Complex Season 1, Episode 21, Eraser. Season 1 of Standalone Complex deals with the shrewdest hacker named the Laughing Man, who's on a mission to expose the suppression of the Murai vaccine, which could cure cyberbrain sclerosis, a degenerative disease that destroys cyborg brains. A medical practitioner named Dr. Imakurusu, a government insider, is also involved in the suppression of this cure, but he himself uses the vaccine secretly to treat himself. Section 9 was tasked with securing Imakurusu before the corrupted corporate officials assassinated him, but during that mission, they were ambushed by the DEA's Elite Narcotics Suppression Squad, or NSS. While Batou successfully rescued Imakurusu, Motoko fought a giant JMSDF Type 303 attack mech all by herself. However, in the end, Imakurusu met a mysterious masked figure in a cap, but before Batou could do anything, Imakurusu was silenced by a government-hired sniper. Before he died, he demanded to see the Laughing Man's face. As that mysterious person revealed the face, it turned out to be a young man named Aoi. However, Aoi still managed to keep his cover intact by hacking into Batou's cyber eyes. Batou grew desperate to see the hacker's face, but all he could see was blank, empty pavement, while Aoi quietly left the scene as if nothing had happened. This was the first time we realized that Batou's cybernetic eyes can be a weakness. The irony is that his hyper-advanced cyber enhancements indeed give him strength, but at the end of the day, a human brain has the ability to outsmart technology, just like Aoi's ruthless hacking techniques outsmarted Batou's cybernetic eyes, which historically have been the most useful parts of his body. So, as we mentioned earlier, calculating how much of his body is actually human can be a very tricky metric, and all we know for certain is that Batou is anything but a robot. His love for animals, his empathy, and his compassion for his teammates are unparalleled, which sometimes makes him even more human than a flesh and blood person. So that's all we got for you guys today, but I think if you watched the Ghost in the Shell franchise, you undeniably felt a connection with Batou's humanity. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons to let us know you want to see more stuff like this. Also, we'd love to hear your thoughts on Batou's humanity in the comments section down below, but otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and we'll see ya in the next one.